Ibrahim Traoré had only 47 hours, 38 minutes, and 12 seconds left to live. He had just found a black envelope on his desk. Inside were only 4 words: 48 hours, leave or else. When his phone rang, he didn't recognize the number. "Did you find?" "The envelope?" the voice asked. "I know who you are," Traoré said, "and I promise you I'll still be here after 48 hours. The moment he hung up, a distant explosion echoed. The building across from the presidential palace was engulfed in flames. The ultimatum had begun. The morning had started like any other for Ibrahim Traoré. He had arrived at his office in the presidential palace of Ouagadougou at 5:30 a.m. before most of his staff. These early, quiet hours were when he did his best, thinking, reviewing intelligence reports and planning policy initiatives without interruption. But today something was different. The black envelope hadn't been there when he left his office last night. His security protocols were strict. No document reached his desk without being screened. Yet somehow this envelope had appeared, bypassing every layer of protection. As flames from the explosion rose across the street, his office door burst open. Security Chief Urago rushed in, hand on his weapon. "Mr. President, are you all right? We need to move you to a secure location immediately." Traoré remained seated, studying the envelope on his desk. "Who was in my office last night, Emmanuel?" "No. One, sir. The night logs show no entries after you left at 11:20 p.m. "Then we have a breach," Traoré said, his voice calm despite the chaos erupting outside. He held up the envelope. "Someone delivered this directly to my desk, and I believe they just detonated a bomb to emphasize their message." Ouagadougou's face hardened. "Let me see that, sir." "It's already been opened," Traoré replied, handing him the note with its 4 ominous words. The security chief scanned the message, his expression darkening. "This is a direct threat to your life, Mr. President. Protocol dictates immediate evacuation to the bunker." "No," Traoré said firmly, standing up. "That's exactly what they want. To disrupt governance, to show they can make me run and hide." He walked to the window, watching emergency vehicles arriving at the burning building. Was anyone hurt in the explosion? Initial reports suggest the building was empty. It was scheduled for demolition next week. Traoré nodded. A warning shot, then precise, calculated. He turned back to Ouagadougou. "I want a full security sweep of the palace. Check every camera, every log entry. Find out how that envelope reached my desk." As Ouagadougou left to carry out his orders, Traoré's private phone rang again, the same unknown number. "You're still there," the voice said. "Brave but foolish." "What do you want?" Traoré asked. "I told you already. Leave Burkina Faso within 48 hours. Resign the presidency. Cross the border. Never return. Simple." "And if I refuse?" A cold laugh came through the speaker. "The building was empty today. Tomorrow, who knows? Perhaps your sister's school, or your mother's nursing home, or maybe something more nationally significant." The call ended before Traoré could respond. His official phone rang next. It was Foreign Minister Couldr. "Mr. President, I just received an urgent call from the French ambassador. He's requesting an emergency meeting with you this morning." Traoré's eyes narrowed. "Did he say why?" "Something. About concerns for stability following the explosion." "How did he know I would be available?" "The explosion happened less than 10 minutes ago." There was a pause on the line. I don't know, sir. Tell him I'm busy managing a security situation. We can meet tomorrow." He looked at the digital clock on his wall. 5:47 a.m. Whatever game had begun, he now had 47 hours and 13 minutes to end it. And his first clue was the suspicious timing of the French ambassador's call. By 8:30 a.m., the presidential palace was in a controlled state of heightened security. Traoré had called an emergency meeting with his most trusted advisors. Security. Chief Ouagadougou, Intelligence Director Amina Konité, and Defense Minister Zongo. The security sweep found nothing, Ouagadougou reported. No unauthorized entries, no camera disruptions. Whoever delivered that envelope either has inside access or capabilities beyond our current security measures. The explosion was professional. Work, added Defense Minister Zongo. Remote detonated precision charges, minimal collateral damage, but maximum visibility. Intelligence Director Kate, a sharp-minded woman who had risen quickly through Burkina Faso's reformed intelligence service, looked troubled. Sir, there's something else you should know. In the past 24 hours, unusual financial transactions have occurred. Several million euros moving through offshore accounts linked to 3 of your cabinet ministers. Traoré's expression remained neutral, but his mind was racing. Which ministers? Foreign Minister Kabor, Economy Minister Dio, and, surprisingly, Health Minister Sawadogo. The room fell silent. These were 3 of TRI's most public-facing ministers, all involved in recent policy changes that had challenged Western interests in Burkina Faso. There's more, Konaté continued. We've detected increased encrypted communications between certain French diplomatic personnel and these accounts. Nothing explicit, but the timing is suspicious. Traoré stood and walked to the map of Burkina Faso displayed on his wall. His country, poor in resources by global standards, but rich in the determination of its people, had been pushing back against decades of neo-colonial control. Under his leadership, they had demanded renegotiation of exploitative mining contracts, expelled foreign military bases, and begun building regional alliances independent of Western approval. This is about the Chinese infrastructure deal, he said finally. We're scheduled to sign it this Friday, exactly 48 hours from now. The $5 billion infrastructure package would transform Burkina Faso's transportation and energy systems, without the predatory terms Western institutions typically demanded. It would also significantly reduce French and American influence in the region. Sir, Ouedraogo said carefully, if this threat is connected to the Chinese deal, perhaps postponing the signing would be prudent until we can ensure your safety. Traoré turned to face him. That's exactly what they want. Delay, uncertainty, an appearance of weakness that they can exploit to collapse the agreement. His voice hardened. The signing will proceed as scheduled, but we will use these 48 hours to find who's behind this and neutralize the threat. As the meeting concluded, Traoré gave clear directives. Konaté would trace the financial transactions and communications. Zongo would quietly enhance security around key infrastructure and Traoré's family members. Ouedraogo would investigate potential inside sources of the security breach. Alone in his office afterward, Traoré checked his personal security protocols. He opened a hidden safe behind a painting of Thomas Sankara, Burkina Faso's revolutionary hero. Inside was a satellite phone not connected to any government system, a loaded handgun, and a flash drive containing evidence he had been gathering for months, evidence of foreign interference in Burkina Faso's affairs. His secure line rang. It was Amina Konaté. Sir, we found something. The phone that called you. We've traced its last location to the French embassy. By midday, the first assassination attempt came. Traoré was heading to a scheduled meeting with military commanders when his convoy took an unexpected detour. Sir, there's been a change of plans, his driver announced. Security Chief Ouedraogo ordered we take you to the secondary command center. Traoré immediately sensed something was wrong. I wasn't informed of any change. The order came through just minutes ago, sir. Urgent protocol. Traoré studied the driver's face in the rearview mirror. This man had been with his security detail for over a year, but something in his demeanor felt off. Call Ouedraogo, Traoré ordered his personal security officer seated beside him. Confirm this change directly. The officer dialed, then frowned. No answer, sir. Try his secondary line. Another attempt. Another failure to connect. Traoré made a split-second decision. Stop the vehicle. Now, sir. My orders. I said stop. Traoré's voice carried the unmistakable authority of command. The driver hesitated, then pulled over on the outskirts of Ouagadougou, where the urban landscape began giving way to more isolated terrain. "Where exactly is this secondary command center?" Traoré demanded. "Sir, it's the facility near the old mining complex," the driver replied, a bead of sweat now visible on his temple despite the air conditioning. Traoré knew immediately that was a lie. No such facility existed. "Step out of the vehicle," he ordered the driver. "Hands where I can see them." The standoff lasted only seconds. The driver reached for something under his seat, but Traoré's security officer was faster. Brief struggle ensued before the officer had the driver pinned to the ground. A search revealed a syringe filled with clear liquid and a satellite phone with just one number in its call log. Back at the palace, under intense interrogation, the driver broke quickly. He had been approached 3 days ago by a French businessman who offered him $50,000 to drive Traoré to a remote location where others would be waiting. He claimed not to know the ultimate plan, but the syringe's contents, later analyzed as a powerful sedative, suggested abduction rather than immediate assassination. "They're trying to take me alive," Traoré told his crisis team after reviewing the interrogation report. "Why?" "Leverage," suggested Intelligence Director Konate. "Force you to sign something under duress, make announcements they can record, or extract information about our defense systems, or create a power vacuum they can fill with someone more see." "To access the narrowest veins," Traoré said, his voice tight with controlled fury, "places adults can't reach." They were exploring a side tunnel when they heard voices approaching. Traoré and his men concealed themselves just as a group of Goldtech security personnel entered, led by a supervisor speaking urgently into a radio. "We've secured the site," the man reported, removing all evidence as ordered. "The president won't find anything." "Did you locate the missing workers?" asked a voice through the radio. Marchand's voice. "Negative. After the explosion, at least 15 children fled into the emergency tunnels. We're still searching. Find them." "They cannot speak to anyone, understand?" Traoré had heard enough. He stepped out from concealment, his security officers flanking him with weapons drawn. "I believe those children are now under my protection," he said. The Goldtech security team froze, then slowly raised their hands. The supervisor's radio crackled, with Marchand's increasingly frantic questions. "Your boss will have plenty to answer for," Traoré continued, picking up the radio. "Mr. Marchand, I suggest you prepare for a very difficult conversation." Back on the surface, the situation had transformed. Word of the president's findings had somehow leaked, drawing crowds of locals and workers' families demanding answers. Many were parents of children who had disappeared after being recruited for special training programs by Goldtech. Marchand and the French ambassador were attempting to leave when Traoré emerged from the mine. The evidence was with him. Documentation, photographs, and most damningly, 3 children who had been hiding in a ventilation shaft. Terrified, but alive. "Arrest them," Traoré ordered, pointing to Marchand and his executives. "Charges will include child exploitation, human trafficking, and criminal negligence resulting in death." Ambassador Laval stepped forward, outrage overcoming diplomacy. "You can't do this. These men have diplomatic protection under our mining agreements." "Show me where child slavery is protected in our agreements," Traoré replied coldly. "Your mining company has been operating a forced labor camp on Burkina Faso soil. There is no diplomatic protection for this." As the executives were taken into custody, Traoré addressed the gathering crowd. Many were filming with their phones, broadcasting the scene across social media. "Today we have discovered a crime that cannot be forgiven," he said, his voice carrying across the stunned onlookers. "Children of Burkina Faso, forced to work in conditions no human should endure, all to extract gold that never benefited our people." He turned, gesturing to the mine entrance. The real explosion wasn't in the tunnels. It was an attempted escape by children who could no longer bear their captivity. And rather than rescue them, this company tried to bury the evidence. The night that followed was long and difficult. Traoré remained at the mine site, personally overseeing the rescue operations that continued through darkness. By dawn, 23 children had been recovered from various hiding places deep in the mine. 5 more bodies were found, children who had died in the initial explosion, or from injuries sustained during their attempted escape. Each child had a story more heartbreaking than the last. Most had been recruited from impoverished villages, with promises of vocational training and good wages for their families. Instead, they found themselves virtual prisoners, lowered into the earth each day to crawl through narrow tunnels where adults couldn't fit, extracting gold from thin veins with hand tools. "How long has this been happening?" Traoré asked a mining engineer who had turned informant after seeing the children being rescued. "Years," the man admitted. "Not just here. Most major mines have similar operations, though perhaps not as extensive. It's an open secret in the industry." "An open secret," Traoré repeated. "And my government knew nothing." The engineer looked uncomfortable. "Your predecessors, there were arrangements. Certain officials were well compensated to look the other way." In the days that followed, the full horror of Busura became clear. International inspectors discovered similar conditions in other gold tech operations across Burkina Faso. Documents revealed a systematic program of child labor used to access narrow gold seams adult workers couldn't reach. Most damning were the financial records. While Goldtech reported modest profitability to tax authorities, their internal figures showed billions in undeclared gold extraction smuggled out of the country through diplomatic channels. Traoré convened an emergency cabinet meeting. Some ministers counseled caution, warning of economic repercussions if foreign mining companies were antagonized. "These companies provide jobs," argued the finance minister. "They pay taxes, build infrastructure. Without them, our economy would collapse." "Jobs. For whom?" Traoré countered. "Adults working in dangerous conditions for minimal wages, while children are enslaved in the deepest tunnels. And what taxes? We found evidence of massive underdeclaration. As for infrastructure, they build roads to their mines, power lines to their facilities. The benefits to ordinary citizens are incidental at best." Still, the foreign minister interjected, "We must be pragmatic. Western powers will not take kindly to any disruption of their mining interests." Traoré stood, ending the debate. "I didn't become president to be pragmatic about child slavery. Prepare for nationalization, all of it." 1 week after the Busura revelation, Ibrahim Traoré addressed the nation from the presidential palace. Millions watched on television and listened on radio as their leader, dressed in simple military fatigues rather than formal attire, spoke directly to his people. "Citizens of Burkina Faso, for too long we have been told that foreign companies bring prosperity, that we need their expertise and capital to develop our resources. Yet after decades of this arrangement, our people remain poor while our gold builds skyscrapers in Paris and Toronto." He held up a small piece of raw gold ore. This was found by one of the children at Busura, a child who should have been in school, who should have been playing with friends, who should have had a future. Instead, he was underground in darkness, extracting wealth for others. Traoré paused, letting the image sink in. "Today, I am announcing the immediate nationalization of all gold mining operations in Burkina Faso. Foreign companies will have 30 days to transfer control to our newly established National Resource Authority. They will be compensated fairly for their legitimate investment, but not for the wealth they have stolen." He outlined the plan in detail, how mines would be operated by Burkinabe engineers and workers, how revenues would be redirected to education, healthcare, and infrastructure, how transparent accounting would ensure benefits flowed to the people rather than to corrupt officials or foreign shareholders. "This will not be easy," he acknowledged. "We will face resistance from those who have profited from the old system. There will be economic challenges as we transition to national management. But the alternative, continuing to allow our children to be sacrificed for foreign profit, is unacceptable." The international reaction was swift and predictable. Western governments condemned the move as hostile to foreign investment. Financial institutions warned of economic collapse. Former colonial powers threatened sanctions. The French government was particularly vehement, recalling its ambassador and freezing Burkina Faso's assets in French banks. This unilateral action violates numerous bilateral agreements, declared the French foreign minister. President Traoré will find that nations cannot simply rewrite international contracts without consequences. But something unexpected happened as well. Neighboring Mali, Niger, and Guinea expressed support. China and Russia offered technical assistance for running the nationalized mines. Most significantly, the people of Burkina Faso rallied behind the decision with a patriotic fervor not seen in a generation. When Western banks suspended transactions with Burkina Faso financial institutions, local communities organized alternative economies. When threats of aid reductions came, villages pooled resources to support social services. A wave of national pride swept the country, transcending ethnic and regional divisions. The transition was not without challenges. Some foreign mining experts departed, taking technical knowledge with them. Supply chains for specialized equipment were disrupted. Production temporarily decreased. Traoré had anticipated these issues. He established accelerated training programs, bringing Burkina engineers working abroad back to their homeland with patriotic appeals and competitive salaries. He negotiated alternative supply chains through non-Western partners. Most importantly, he maintained complete transparency about the difficulties, speaking honestly to his people about the short-term sacrifices required for long-term sovereignty. 3. Months later, Traoré invited international journalists to tour the Busura mine, now operated by Burkina engineers and workers. The transformation was remarkable. Safety standards had improved. Workers received fair wages. Most importantly, a portion of the profits now funded a school built near the mine, where former child laborers received the education they had been denied. "This is what we call the Golden Palace," Traoré told the journalists, gesturing to the modest school building. "Not because it's luxurious, but because it represents the true value of our gold, the future of our children." A reporter from a French news agency raised his hand. "President Traoré, Western economists predict Burkina Faso's mining sector will collapse without foreign expertise. How do you respond?" Traoré smiled. "The same expertise that created child labor camps. I think we'll manage without it." He gestured to the mine operations visible through the window. "Look around you. The same Burkina who did the actual work before are doing it now. The difference is who benefits from their labor." Another journalist spoke up. "The French government has frozen Burkina Faso's assets in European banks. How will you weather these sanctions?" "By remembering what truly constitutes wealth," Traoré replied. "Is it numbers in foreign bank accounts, or is it the resources within our soil, the skills of our people, our sovereignty over our destiny?" The press conference concluded, but Traoré lingered at the school, watching the children who had once been forced to mine gold, now learning to read and write. The contrast was stark, from darkness to light, from exploitation to opportunity. Boy approached him, perhaps 11 years old, his face still bearing faint scars from his time in the mines. "Mr. President," the child said, "my father works in the mine now. He says that before the gold made white men rich, now it makes Burkina Faso strong. Is that true?" Traoré knelt to meet the boy at eye level. "What's your name?" "Thomas, sir, after Thomas Sankara." Traoré smiled at the reference to his revolutionary predecessor. "Well, Thomas, your father is right. But the real strength isn't just in the gold. It's in knowing that it belongs to us, and in deciding for ourselves how to use it." The boy nodded solemnly. "When I grow up, I want to be an engineer, to find better ways to get the gold without anyone having to go underground." "Then you should study hard," Traoré told him, "because Burkina Faso will need engineers like you." As Traoré left the school, he reflected on the journey that had begun with a mining accident report crossing his desk. When he had heard about the accident at the gold mine, he didn't know it was just the beginning. When he saw the truth, there was no turning back. The path ahead would not be easy. Western powers would not relinquish their control over African resources without a fight. There would be economic hardship, political pressure, perhaps even attempts to remove him from power. Yet already, something remarkable was happening. Other African nations were following Burkina Faso's example, examining their own resource agreements with new scrutiny. A movement was building, not orchestrated by politicians or driven by ideology, but arising naturally from a shared recognition that sovereignty meant nothing if a nation's wealth benefited others while its own people suffered. 6 months after, the nationalization production at Burkina Faso's gold mines had returned to previous levels, with a crucial difference: the profits remained in the country. New schools were being built not just at Basura, but across the nation. Healthcare facilities were expanding. Infrastructure projects long delayed were moving forward. More importantly, a sense of possibility had taken root. Children who might once have been sent to work in mines were now attending school, dreaming of futures as engineers, doctors, teachers. Workers who had toiled for foreign companies now felt ownership in their labor, pride in their contribution to national development. His office at the presidential palace, Traoré received regular updates on the transformation. The economic data was encouraging, but it was the human stories that moved him most. Former child miners graduating from primary school, villages using mining revenues to build water treatment facilities, young Burkinabe engineers returning from abroad to serve their homeland. One evening, as he reviewed these reports, his aide announced an unexpected visitor, Moussa Wedo, the miner whose words had first alerted Traoré to the truth about Section 12. "Mr. President," Wedo said, standing somewhat awkwardly in his simple clothes, "I came to thank you. My nephew was one of the children you rescued from Busura. He's in school now." "You're the one I should thank," Traoré replied. "Your courage in speaking the truth set everything in motion." Wedo shook his head. "I only spoke. You acted, many before you heard the truth and chose to ignore it." As Traoré watched the man leave, he thought about choices, the small decisions that ultimately defined a leader's legacy. The choice to investigate personally rather than accept official reports. The choice to confront powerful interests rather than accommodate them. The choice to prioritize children's welfare over economic expedience. When he had seen those children underground, there was only one choice he could live with. And though the path forward remained challenging, though Western powers continued their pressure campaign, though each day brought new obstacles to overcome, Ibrahim Traoré knew with absolute certainty that he had made the right choice. The gold of Burkina Faso would finally serve the people of Burkina Faso, and that was worth any price.